Welcome to Electrolysis Unplugged, an after-hours chat beyond the probe with Joanie and Stephanie. We're here to dive deep into the world of electrolysis, education, and all things hair removal.
Whether you're a seasoned professional or just curious about the art of permanent hair removal, we've got the insights, tips, and fun stories to keep you plugged in.
So grab your tools, take a seat, and let's get into it. This is Electrolysis Unplugged, brought to you by the Electrology Education Coalition.
Welcome, everyone.
Hello, friends.
This is week 4. I'll unmute you, Stephanie. I guess you can talk.
See this? She tries to silence me. She's trying to record me. What's going on, guys?
So welcome, everybody, to week 4. So this is exciting. We were actually going to kick off tonight's conversation talking about different associations, affiliations that actually exist in this field of electrology so that you kind of understand what's out there, what you can be a member of, different board certifications. So what's like life after school, really. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a professional, you've been out there for a while and you just don't know how you can, grow in your career. This might be kind of a good pathway to take, a good conversation to have. So Stephanie, do you want to kick it off? Go for it.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I thought about was, I know that you've faced this as well. Some of the people that we have that come to our schools are already practicing electrologists, mm-hmm. and they were the person that trained them was unable to certify them or get them licensed. Okay, and so there are even things that you can do once you're going in your career. If you, for example, side-chaired with somebody that didn't have certifications or didn't have licensure. So when we talk about this, there's a lot out there, and both of us find value in all of the associations because at the end of the day, it's whatever you connect with is really where you're going to thrive. Okay. That everybody knows of AEA because it's like electrology.com. They have the easiest website, right?
Well, you say everybody does, and I find that most people actually don't, so
I would say if they were searching online, if they typed in electrology school, AEA comes to the top because of the name, I should say. Mm-hmm. They might not know what it is. They're like, what is this? But because of that name, it benefits them in weird ways. Yeah. So it kind of puts them to the top of the search engine, and that could be a whole other class about like how to search engine optimization. But there is also organizations like the Society of Clinical and Medical Hair Removal here in the States. Back in the day, you might have heard somebody say they were a guild member. A guild member was, there used to be, before Society of Clinical and Medical Hair Removal, there was an electrology guild. So you had a lot of different organizations. And because the Electrology Education Coalition, we look at ourselves as not only like an education here in the States, but we are looking at a global side. So there are organizations that border us to the north. So we have like COPE, we have TAPE, both in Canada, and those even have subsets of themselves. So a lot of times when we do education events, we actually don't know who's needing to submit CEUs. So when we pre-approve or get prior authorization for our CEUs, we do it with some organizations because it's easier than other organizations. And some of them, you guys have to self-submit. Even with for example, the American Electrology Association, when you take a class it has its prior auth done, it's not the organization you went with that submits that. It's actually, you take that certificate and you send it in, and you have to put in your certificate fees. And there's layers on top of that. So if you're a member versus a non-member, those are things that would change how you submit that certificate. So when somebody is interacting with the Electrology Coalition, if you are concerned whether yours is pre-approved or not, I would let us know what organization you came from. See if, yes, we were able to get pre-approval or not. Okay. Find out what you need to do. And we are going to start compiling how to do the major ones here in the States. But you have
But it won't cover
organizations,
everything.
huh?
It won't cover everything.
It will not cover everything, not at all. But we're trying our best to get you guys close to that information. But we are seeing the fact that because there's so many, how your state submits your CEUs, whether or not you have them. So does your state require certain people to do the CEUs? Like there are so many steps, and with as many faces that we have, as technicians, we have to do our due diligence to figure out what they need from us for CEUs, because they make you guys submit everything. So we get to provide you education, and we don't get
and
to
there's always a fee associated with that. So
yeah,
keep that in mind
so
too.
There's when you go to my school, for example, I'm in an unlicensed state. While I have reciprocity with the licensed state of Oregon for one of my 600-hour program, students in my state don't have to have it. And when I say this, understand that I'm not a fan of this, but they don't have to have formal training. They do have to follow RCWs, which is like the revised codes of Washington, which means that we have to make sure that you're practicing safely, but there's no rules outside of that. So in my state, if you want to gain continued education hours, you would have to go through the Washington Electrology Association, so WSEA is mine, and go to their events, but you can only be, unfortunately, a member because they're affiliated with a national organization, if you're also a member of that organization. So there's all these little like caveats, and not everybody does that. And like Joanie is in a state that's licensed, and so she has CEUs. I'm sure that you have CEUs.
Actually, no, the state of California does not require continuing education credits to maintain your license. So most people, yeah, exactly, they get licensed and that's it. But I mean, that's one of the benefits of joining an association like the Society for, I always get the
clinical and medical hair removal.
I know, I always say cosmetic for some reason, but they have the CCE certification. Are you a CCE, correct?
So actually, what's funny is I chose originally not to do my CECE, and I'm actually getting my CCE this year.
Okay.
The reason I chose not to was I was trying to like really get hyper focused on one certification, and just max out as many hours as I could. And I got busy and I didn't do more certification testing. So I'm actually doing that this year. And I'm also going to be trying to use my prior education to get my license in the state next to me. Yeah. So so even me, it's like I'm doing extra things 20 years in because I like having those letters after my name. But
exactly, yeah, a little bit of extra clout, I guess.
and like my mom, so some of you know me, some of you don't. My mother's also an electrologist. She has a CCE and she's going for her CME. So when you talk about your credentials after your name, CPE, certified professional electrologist, like LE, licensed electrologist, RE, registered electrologist. Okay. Then you have CCE, that's a certified clinical electrologist. Okay. And then a CME is a certified medical electrolysis. Those two are from the Society of Clinical and Medical Hair Removal. And to get your CME, which would be the medical electrolysis one, you have to have been a CCE and you have to be dual trained. So you also have to be trained in laser hair removal as well. So it's like you have these steps, right? And each one of them comes up with a different thing. Yeah. So if you're ever wanting to add some acronyms, right? You like to put a little razzle dazzle on the end of your name. There's a lot out there that you can do. I know that Joannie's done classes all over the world. I've done like up in Canada, but like the one that I'm doing in Canada in May is through another association.
It's through COPE, right?
It's through COPE.
It's the COPE
and
one,
they want to attract people like us. They want to see more people in their spaces. And so they went and did, can I put them all in text? How many letters you yes, I can. But they want to see us. And so what they did was they're like, okay, we know that if we get prior authorization for our event through the American Electrology Association, that we might have members come to our event. And so they did that. And that event's at like a hot spring at all places, which you're going to just see me soaking and percolating in a tub. So yes, I'm going to put that all in the chat. So that's some of the stuff that like kind of goes on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. So pretty much the associations that are available to you guys, some of the main two in the United States would be the AEA, which focuses on electrology specifically. The Society for Clinical and Medical Hair Removal will actually do electrolysis, but they also cover laser technicians. If you're in a state that you can actually do laser, then it would benefit you more to actually be a society member instead of the AEA, because it's a little bit more open as far as who can do what. The certifications that you get, you have to test for. And so those are usually only written tests, but it's something you'll have to study for. And actually, I have one of the books. I'll show you the one for the AEA. So the test is called I probably have to take off. There you go, in front of me. So the IBEX study guide is and this one is both laser and hair removal. But this is the book that you want to study in order to test for your CPE certification. You can order this through the AEA's website. So they have a store. It is cheaper if you are a member, but memberships for these tend to run around like $200 to $300 a year. It depends. And again, it depends on if your state has an affiliate membership. So in California, for example, we have two. We have the Southern California chapter and the Northern California chapter. So Southern California people, usually you'll join, and automatically you join the Southern California chapter too. They're supposed to hold meetings. Don't hold your breath. The Northern California one they have one coming up, and that was in the newsletter. Now, if you're one of my students and you're here at school, I always have the latest newsletter somewhere. So you want to see what's going on, just come and check out the newsletter. You can see they'll announce the meetings in there, any kind of special events that pertain to the field. You can kind of see what's going on there.
If you're ever wondering like what your state regulations are, if it is not if it's not easy to find, the American Electrology Association does have a large, I don't want to call it registry. What do they send? The thing they send out every year. I cannot think of the name.
Oh, like the roster.
The roster, like registry roster. They have like all of the states and like their hour requirements and who to call. So if you're like, who do I call to like keep up to date, which you should know, but if you don't, like they have that in there. And if your state's not in there, that means your state doesn't have regulations that they found. In our case, Washington isn't in there for regulation. And it was me, because I'm trying to get my state licensed, looking through a bunch of stuff when I found my RCWs. And I was like, this is insane. And most people out here did not even know that they existed. And the ones that did know weren't necessarily following it because there's nobody like telling them what to do. So, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot, my friends. It's a rough one. I'm pulling up some questions here. So last week, we had started talking about researching demographics in your area for business plans. And Joanie, you had mentioned that you had done this when you were doing the school. And someone asked, like, how do I find that? Do you happen to have an area that you particularly looked in your own?
Yeah, it was the government ones. So I'll have to go back and actually check, and I can probably do a quick search, but you can look at the census data. And so the website's a little bit complicated to navigate, but it's expansive. So there's a lot of different data on there. So it was the census. I'll try to find it if you want to kind of take over for a little bit, and then
yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that, like, when I was creating my business plan for my area, what I did was I looked in my old client books back when I was in Phoenix to see what like some of the demographics of my clients were. So a lot of those intake questions when I'm trying to find out like your age, gender that you're listing, area, right? So I went and looked mainly at age and gender, and I took those and I went and looked at the Washington, and I started to with those points, see what my potential client base could be. And then on top of that, I started looking at like the income of the areas that I was hoping to move to, and the income of the surrounding areas, average income. I did that through, I want to say it was the assessor's office, seeing what people were listening. The census I used as well. What else did I do? I have to think of, I would have to go pull up my business license to see what or not business license, business plan to see what all they put in there. I looked up the average age of individuals that were going to the beauty schools in the area. So I went and looked that up for other adjacent schools. So beauty, aesthetics, cosmetology, that kind of stuff. Looked up how many people in my area were trades, non-education, or college-based education. I looked up access to healthcare, seeing what was available since I did want to do insurance-based electrolysis. I started to look into there as well, so see what we can do to find that. So there was a lot of items that I started to pull and think like, what's important to the people I'm asking to believe in me, right? When you're building a business plan, you're building that to like show it to your bank and your financial planner, that kind of stuff. What would they want to know from me? And then I went and started looking at other people in our industry to see what their business plans, if they had posted anything online. That was harder to find, but I did find a few people that had posted like business plans for the aesthetic industry. And that kind of helped me start to format how mine looked. It was interesting to me to see how much information is compiled about us and how hard it is, even though there's so much, how hard it is to figure out your area in terms of that. At least in Washington, I was like, whoa, like you have all this information on us, but you don't have it organized. And that just blew my mind.
So I went ahead and posted the link, and I kind of just when it's on the USA, so it's the government census data. And so the website can be a little bit complicated, but you can actually set some filters and start creating, and really when you're doing a business plan, you're talking about the target type of, or your the target clientele. What they say to do is you have to think about like who your perfect client is. So think about and go as detailed as you possibly can. So age, gender, where they live, how much they make, do they have kids or not? So you can kind of narrow it down. And so you can use that census data, and then you kind of get a number as to how many of those people end up actually existing in your area. And that gives you that type of like how many clients are really out there for me to service in my area. And so you can narrow it down like that. So for example, when I put one together for when I was taking that class, I put one together for a mobile electrolysis business. And so any of you that are coming to the school, by the way, if you want to take a look at it, I can show you. It's about 60 pages long, so I wasn't joking around. But I went through and I researched everything. I set all the parameters that I needed. And so when I went through, I was like, okay, so who's the clientele that is going to order, a mobile electrolysis business? Because in its nature and because of what it is, that would be a little bit more expensive than you coming to me because it's mobile, right? I go to you, it's premium, so it costs more money. And so I was trying to think, I was thinking about like the housewife that probably doesn't work during the day, but is, upper middle class at minimum, right? That has the type of free time and the type of money and is concerned about how they look, that would want me to come to their office. And so, yes, am I overgeneralizing? Of course, but that's the whole point. So I wanted to see, and then it had to be within my radius of what I would do. And so I kind of saw like, is this is with the area that I would be servicing, is this a profitable type of business for the clientele that's there? So you can kind of get an idea as to what that would be. Some information might be harder to find than others, but for example, I wanted to see, how many transgender individuals are there in Orange County, for example. And I was able to find a source that actually, of course, it's, loosely based on however they gather their data, but you can see then, how many transgender individual, and if it would be, if your business plan is to service the transgender community, then you would want to be set up somewhere where you're kind of in the middle of, a fairly affluent type of, there's a lot of transgender individuals in the area. So you kind of want to narrow it down like that.
Yeah, one of the things, so one of my students wants to do a mobile electrolysis. And one of the things that we talked about was like, when you have a mobile electrolysis clinic, what makes you want to have someone come to you? Mm-hmm. And the big thing that I thought about was so back years ago, one of my patients was a mobile dental hygienist. Okay. And I was like, that is the weirdest thing to mobilize in my brain. Cause I was like, I couldn't imagine like getting the whole station to go. Right. But what she would do is she had a movable station, and she would go and park in front of nursing homes where it was harder to get the patients to the dental office, and she would take care of their dental health on site.
Yes.
And I'm like, think about how many like cute little old ladies we have with chin hair that might be in these spaces, or like going to, I'm sure every area has this, but like in Phoenix, there was Sun City, and Sun City was like, that's your retirement city. Okay. You can't live in Sun City if you're under 55, and everything they want to do is out in Sun City. But usually if you can't live there, someone my age isn't going to go open a business up there. But I could imagine bringing my vehicle to the community center where everybody's getting together anyway and having electrolysis. But it's so funny that it's really coming up a lot. And I think that I don't know if you guys had this, but we had the skinny bus. It was like the cool sculpting bus that would show up at different clinics. And you didn't have to go buy a cool sculpting machine. You could let them park in your parking lot, and people would get the service, and you'd get discounts towards it.
Sure.
But like, you have to think, like, is it going to be profitable?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you're driving around.
And I guess that's what the whole, that's why the business plan was put together. It's like I went through pricing, and I went through hours and insurance and licensing needed for the van, the size of van, how much does it cost, and how do you outfit it? And, so everything that goes into doing something like that, because mobile businesses are allowed in California. So you can have a mobile unit license. But you have to be set up a certain way. And so it's doable, but it's nobody's done it yet, at least for electrolysis.
Yeah. I have met electrologists like, I have to think of his name, James. You've probably seen him online. He travels for his business all the time. That's amazing.
Well, we are not able to like go set up in people's houses.
Yeah.
Like I can't, if you're in an unlicensed state, then yes, you could probably like take your machine, take a massage bed, set up in somebody's living room, and you're good to go. But in California, because the establishment has to be licensed, then you wouldn't be able to do something like that. That's why if you do the mobile business, the treatment would have to be in the van.
Okay. That would make me, well, one, I don't know if anybody's ever seen my car, but I have a little Mini Cooper.
Yeah, well, that's not going to work.
I don't drive big vehicles. Could you guys just imagine my tiny little self just like, I'm showing up? Like, I just can't. But yeah, that's a lot. So,
yeah.
But I mean, you guys, if you can dream it, like, and you can make it work, more power to you. Like, literally, I really am surprised every day by just like the brilliance and ingenuity of people, and like, oh, I'm going to find a different way to do that. And it's really cool. So if that ever ends up being your shtick, then by all means, like, you have us cheering you on for sure.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
So.
Today, we want to shine some light on some of our amazing partners who are helping shape the future of electrology education, services, distribution, and so much more. We're thrilled to have such amazing partners and supporters. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned professional, these vendors and schools have what you need to succeed. When it comes to top-tier machines, look no further than Aesthetic Systems. They offer the latest in technology for both the electrology and aesthetics industry. Their machines, furniture, and more are known for reliability and precision, helping the professionals deliver the best results to their clients. Stay ahead of the curve with Aesthetic Systems' innovative tools. You can learn more about them at aestheticsystems.com. That's aestheticsystems.com. Zapmaster Electrology is located in the Pacific Northwest in Centralia, Washington. Stephanie Shields and her Zaplings lead the charge with award-winning education. Whether you're just starting out or looking to deepen your expertise, Zapmaster offers hands-on training, online theory courses, and so much more. And don't forget their distribution center. Led by Michael Shields, this is your one-stop shop for high-quality tools, products in electrology, aesthetics, laser hair removal, and so much more. Ready to enhance your practice? Visit thezapmaster.com. That is thezapmaster.com, and discover the resources awaiting for you.
Hey there, electrologists. My name is Hazel Bloom. I'm a life coach for the LGBTQIA+ community and its allies. As a trans woman, I have done the hard work and introspection to figure out who I am, what I want from life, and how to live authentically as myself. These are universal skills that I can teach you and help you gain the confidence to thrive. Also, I know that the conversations with clients on the table can get a bit intense and beyond the scope of electrology, so I'd invite you to refer them to me so they can get the support they need through a tough time instead of taking that burden on yourself. I'm also available as a resource for you if you just need some assistance figuring out how to help a client or to ask any questions. Whatever you need, I can help. My website is kiwifruitcoaching.com, or you can email me directly, hazel@kiwifruitcoaching.com.
Thanks for tuning in to Electrolysis Unplugged. Be sure to check out our amazing sponsors for the best in electrology tools, training, technology, and so much more. Now, back to the show.
Okay, next question. What autoclave are you using, and why was that your choice?
Autoclave specifically, or dry heat versus autoclave? Is that the question?
It says autoclave. Yeah. So the student said, what is your autoclave and why did you choose it?
Well, at the salon, I have the Prestige one, the little bucket, the little rice cooker, so that's what I have. Why? Because it doesn't take up a lot of space. I like an autoclave because you can sterilize more things in it and it's faster. Yeah. So if the decision between dry heat and autoclave, I'm definitely autoclave all the way. As far as what unit for the salon, I just don't have the space for something big. At the school, we have the one that I call Big Bertha, which is just the really big unit. But those units cost $5,000-$6,000, but it has a drying cycle in it. So when you take your things out, everything's dry and ready to go, but we have more space for something like that here too. So it depends.
Yeah. Right now we're using, and now my school is smaller than hers. So right now we're using a Prestige autoclave. I do have dreams to get a larger one just because you can really only batch out about like 15 forceps, 20 forceps, and it be safe. But I do really like those, like the ones that have the drying rack inside, because I hate having to lay them all out and let them air dry. And
but even with that big unit, I had to kind of MacGyver some, because there's 3 trays inside. Okay. And the trays really, like, if you're putting the tools in the bags, you can only fit so much stuff, because again, you can't stack your things, right? So you can't have all your packages on top of each other. And so I actually went and got these little soap, like metal soap racks, so it's just metal and has the lines.
Yeah.
And so I got a couple of those, because then in those I'm able to lay the bags standing up. So it's like a little tray that where I can put the bags standing up like this, one next to each other. So we're able to fit, like, each tray is able to fit about, like, I would say like 10 to 15 tools. Now they're standing up, so I'm losing a tray. So I have 2 of them, but now I can process about 30 and it dries them. Okay. And I had to I was trying to think of like how I can make them stand up, and I ended up buying their soap dish racks.
That's awesome.
But it's metal. It works.
Yeah. Olga asked, is like the Tuttenauer better than Prestige or same level quality? When I clicked on your link, they're the same level. So really, you just want to make sure that one, it is
it's
graded
the same machine.
to be,
It looks like the same machine.
Yeah.
Probably manufactured by the same person.
Right. I'm like, somebody just was like, I'm going to put a name on this and like call it my own. You want to make sure that your machine is healthy. Okay. So the seals seal. If you're noticing that you're not getting a good connection, make sure that you're changing out that ring on the inside. You want to do spore testing, make sure that there's nothing wrong with the unit. Take good care of whatever unit you get. I have been in offices before where you can tell that like the equipment gets manhandled. And so just really every investment you do in your practice, make sure that you're looking at but they're the same quality. So, and even those old school autoclaves, the ones that were like, you basically like screw them down and like, they basically like a big old pressure cooker. Those are great too. It's just, some are easier to use for people than others.
Yeah.
What I will say, because this question came up, and I think that we've brushed upon this before a little bit. I can't remember if it was in here or not. People have asked me, can you use an Instapot?
No.
And so I went down the deep dive, okay? And in rural areas, in medical offices, when you have a limited access to care, Instapots that have never been used for anything but sterilization, they've never had food in them at all, can be double used as like an autoclave.
Is that written in their legislation?
It is.
Or it's just that like somebody wrote somewhere in a board that they use it for that.
It was a study done. There is no legislation. And I will tell you, because I was like curious. I was like, I got to go ask like what will my insurance agent say? And he was like, if it does not say that it is made for the tool and something gets called to question because something went wrong, and someone's like, well, I saw that you're using an autoclave, right? You do not have the coverage. It's like using your machine off label.
Okay? Well, and that's why I was actually going to bring that up, because you have to be careful with doing things other than what your machinery is made for. Yes. And so one of the main things for that is using our electrolysis machines to do advanced electrolysis, is what people have been calling it. I call it like thermocoagulation, but we're talking about, like cauterizing little blood vessels, ruby points, Campbell spots, to do skin tags, to do like all of this stuff. It's like your machine is able to do it. Whether you're doing it with thermolysis or galvanic, it doesn't matter. The machine's able to do it, but the machine is not made for that. And in the book, it doesn't say that it's for that. So if you get sued, you will lose 100% of the time, because they're just going to say that machine wasn't made for that purpose, and therefore you shouldn't have been doing it.
Yeah. So and the thing is like those advanced electrolysis machines, the fact is for years, I'm not teaching advanced electrolysis any longer. And that's because, one, I can't do it in my state. I don't really want to do it. I want to do hair removal. It's cool. Like I'll do it on like myself and that kind of stuff. Or like if, Mike has an irregularity that I keep picking at, like I'll do that. Right. But for the most part, it's not like my bread and butter. Now, my nurse practitioner was like, hey, I want to do this as a service. And years ago, I trained them. I'm like, absolutely. But we just have to make sure that we have a machine that's rated for that. There's Thermalo by Lorenzo Kunz. That's actually my old laser instructor. Great machine. It's meant for that. Skin Classic, great machine. It's meant for that.
If you buy the Angie or the Eclipsia with Dectro, that's their machine. The Angie is a 13.56 megahertz frequency, and the Eclipsia is a 27 megahertz machine. But both of those, while it's the same technology as the hair removal machines, and there's usually a button for hair removal on them, they're actually, the paperwork says it's for skin imperfections. And so that machine could be used for that purpose.
Yeah. So, I mean, your paperwork just has to match it. Like, it's really cool because Lorenzo set up his Thermalo as a thermolysis machine. And it has written in his paperwork that you can use this machine for advanced treatments as well as hair removal.
Yeah.
Perfect. Like if you need a backup epilator, throw yourself a little 13.5 megahertz machine with a thermolysis machine, and bam, you have something that can do both. You're not going to get covered in insurance if you are using stuff off label. So like going back to the conversation of like the autoclave, when someone asks me that, it's like, even if you find information on it, if it doesn't state it, you're putting yourself in a really dangerous position. Also,
that same note, you could technically put your stuff in the oven.
Right. Someone said that
that's a dry heat.
Yeah. So, I think it was Kelly.
But let's not.
We were joking about that. She's like, "Oh, toaster oven can do it too," and I'm like,
yeah, right.
"Don't like."
Yeah.
If anybody wants to see my crazy eyes, like, let's not do that to ourselves. And the fact is like, think about what your return on investment is for whatever unit you're buying, how long it takes you to pay it back, and was it a worth it investment?
Mm-hmm.
A prestige one, they run between 800 and 1,000. I forgot to look at the other price of that one. I'm seeing autoclaves on Amazon, for as low as like 500. So you can get yourself like a starter one and see how you do it. Wayne dry heat sterilizers are the only ones I've found that do the right temperature for the right time. The other ones, like those smaller units that people have on Amazon and that kind of stuff, they don't heat up enough.
Yeah.
Or you have to double up the time. So like they might like time out at 30 minutes, but like you have to cook it for the right amount of time for the right temperature. And so just be careful. Make sure that you understand how long you're cooking something for or processing something for. And then if it says use distilled water for something, use distilled water.
Yeah.
Right. It's not just because they want you to buy something different. It is because it does change how your machine works.
Yep, you can break it if it runs out of water. So
yeah,
double check that.
Oh, this was a great question. So, how do you know when you should stop taking new clients? This person said they've been barely open and their schedule is beginning to fill up at a 2-week interval.
Mm-hmm.
They want to make sure that they can get their clients in on a regular basis. And they don't know when they should stop bringing on new people and starting a wait list. So, when do you stop?
For me, I've always looked at any consultation when a client comes in, I look at the client as I kind of plan out their whole treatment plan. So you have to look at each client as the project that it is, not the appointment that they have that day. I think that people get in trouble because you might have a space this week or next week to squeeze in an hour consultation, but do you have the time in the future to book whatever time is necessary for whatever they're coming in for? If the answer to that is no, then you shouldn't be taking this client. You should be waitlisting them until you can. So right. I think that it's good to probably it's good, but and you can keep taking clients if you're only booked up maybe the next week or two. If you're booked up more than 2 weeks in the future, you don't have time for new clients. Yeah. Because most clients will come weekly or once every 2 weeks in the beginning. If you're not able to honor that for somebody, then you need to be waitlisting them until you can.
Absolutely. So mine is pretty much the like almost exact same. The only caveat is if when you're looking at that whole picture, one person might be a weekly because it's a problematic hair, and then you might get a peach fuzz person. Well, peach fuzz person's not going to be coming in once a week, or they shouldn't be. It's overworking the skin. So you could put that person at a 4 or 6 week interval because it takes a little while for those hairs to kind of regenerate, and put somebody like your problematic cases in those spaces. And so I look at myself not as a 2-week window. I look at myself as about a 4-week window. And how can I stagger those appointments over the course of 4 weeks? Mm-hmm. So my patients that have a sizable amount of hair are basically every 2. And then my patients that are like a moderate amount of hair, they're about every 3. And my patients with like imaginary hair problems are usually at about a 4-month window. Okay. I see those smiles, but you guys know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Like the ones that come in and they're like, I'm so hairy. And you're like, like, no. So, and it's like, that 10x mirror, 15x mirror that you put in your bathroom.
I was just going to say, one of my clients this week, I don't remember what we were talking about, but I asked her if she had a magnifying mirror, and she said, no, but I can go buy one. I'm like, don't you dare. Leave that at the store. Don't even look at it. I was like, then you're going to come in here with some imaginary hairs that you think that everybody can see. Don't you dare. You leave that there. No way.
those shower magnifying mirrors that have the suction cups in the back. They're little round with 2 suction cups. Okay. I have a story about that, and I have a story about tweezers. My story about the suction cup magnifying mirror, the woman pulled it out of her pocket and she's like, let me check. And I said, okay, no problem. Let her check. And I grabbed the mirror from her before she could put it back in. I go, I'm going to hold this into your next session. And she started laughing and she goes, I can get more of those, right? And I said, yes. I go, but you don't need to bring it here. I have it now. And then I had another person that said, oh, so you're saying I can't tweeze? And I said, no, really, you're investing. We're not going to be tweezing anymore. She goes, well, what about my purse tweezers? And I said, you have purse tweezers? And she goes, yeah, look. And she pulls them out. And I said, can I see those for a second? And she goes, yeah. And I go, okay, so these are my tweezers now. And I will take off $10 from today's service if you don't get another pair. And she was like, and so it just like, sometimes they just do stuff and you're like, don't pull out a magnifying mirror in the middle. And like, especially with us wearing our loops, like when you have those mega loops on, they're like,
what do you think is going to get by me exactly? Yeah.
Yeah. Are you sure that you got everything?
Yeah.
And like, no, because I don't know what you're looking at. Okay. Yeah. So these are things that we think about that you're like, it's a problem. So, but when I'm thinking about that, those people that have the imaginary hair problems, they usually only need like 15 minutes to 30 minutes, right? I have had a few of them that are hour-long people, but I'll see you once every 6 weeks for an hour. You're not going to be filling my schedule up.
Oh, I had to force someone to do that with imaginary blonde hairs. She wanted to come 2 hours every week. I'm like, I do not have the mental space to be able to do that. That is just too much. Like, I need a break. It's like, well, you're going to come for 1 hour once a month. That's enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had people pull out powdered makeup to like, let me just dust it so you can see what I see. And I'm like,
dye their face.
Dye their facial hair. I've had that happen. And I have used this, just so you guys know, I've used waterproof mascara to highlight accelerated vellus hairs in those situations that might be like a little bit hard to see, but you have to let them dry completely before you get working. So you have to clean waterproof mascara over those hairs. And then if you see any, then you can go after that. But if you work while it's still drying, you're gonna
smearing it everywhere.
Oh my God, it's a nightmare. So that's one that I don't like to do. But if I have someone that really just will not let it be, and every time they come in, they're like, when I leave here, you miss so much hair. Those are the people I will cater in those moments. And then I've had to, unfortunately, fire a couple that just wouldn't necessarily trust that I'm doing all that I can do. And that's an important part. It's hard.
That kind of takes us into like setting boundaries sometimes with some clients, like we're kind of, I almost want to say like tough love, with the way that we approach it. But sometimes it's just like, I understand that you think that you're Chewbacca, but your microscopic hairs are just not needing the time that you're requiring. And I think you should just throw away all of your mirrors and just, go on about your life with one less thing to worry about. I'll do what I can see. There's usually a lot that I can do. And I'm a perfectionist. So I will do a lot, more than I think most electrologists are even willing to do. So peach fuzz, super tiny black, like little baby hairs that people have like everywhere. Like I'll do it all. That's fine. So I do a lot. If I get to a point where I'm like, leave those alone, it's too much. You have to convince them to throw away those mirrors. It's just, there's no point.
It's so hard. And like, I get little streganona hairs too, like where I'm like, what happened? Like, where'd you come up from? But those little like electric shavers until I can get onto my own electrolysis table. And yes, I will zap my own chin hairs. Yeah, I do it. Don't judge me. But like, it's mainly because I just don't want to get tortured by the students. I love them to pieces. They can work on my legs, they can work on my arms. But my face, I've been through so much electrolysis in my early days with my PCOS that I will do a couple hairs and we're good. Like we've maxed out.
So Stephanie has a question. What is the best way to cancel, reschedule with a client if you get sick and would be late notice? I mean, emergencies happen. I think that it's important for electrologists as professionals to be dependable. So it shouldn't be something that happens all the time. In all honesty, I just had a cold a couple, 2 weeks ago, and I was kind of waiting it out, but I wasn't sure if I was going to be better or not by the time it was time for me to go see my clients. And so I just texted everyone, say, by the way, I'm sick. And so, I don't know if I'll be better by Thursday. If you want to still come in, I'll text you Thursday morning, let you know how I'm feeling. But there's a good chance that I might cancel you. So if you want to cancel and make other plans, now's the time to tell me, So just kind of give them a full warning. But it's I would say don't try to go in sick, and let them know with as much notice as you can. At least tentatively, I guess, is what I did. Just a tentative, by the way, I've had a cold all week. It's kind of on its end right now, but there's a chance that I'll see how I'm feeling Thursday, or maybe they don't want to come in to see you, even if, you're at the tail end of something. Yeah. So give them the option to cancel and reschedule.
And I don't put a fee with those moments. Of
course not. Yeah.
Right. It's, when you're booked weeks out, how do you fit them in? Okay. So when I'm booked, this was a great, secondary question, Stephanie. So if I get sick and I'm booked, my patients understand that if we miss an appointment, it's not an issue. Okay. But if we miss a series of appointments, then it becomes problematic because we have to play a little bit of catch up, right? You're not going to get rid of the progress you did, but you are going to feel fuzzier the next time I see you. So most patients understand that those moments happen. But for the most part, they're already, because I book so far out with them, because I try to look ahead at my year, basically almost a year. If not, I'll do a substantial 6-month treatment plan to 8-month treatment plan. And then if I know that treatment plan is going to go into the holiday months, I'll adjust it a little bit during that time frame, just because they tend to not be so good about showing up for appointments close to the holidays. And so that's how I'll adjust it kind of up into that point. But if I started your plan in, say, November, right? During that holiday time, because you have those people that's when they want to come in, then I know that as I get to that year mark, I'm not necessarily worrying about that. Always try to book multiple sessions.
Oh yeah.
Always.
Plan the whole treatment plan and put it in your books. That is the best way to know if you're too busy or not to take on new clients. Clients have their appointments, so they're not going to forget to come in or forget to book, fall off their treatment plans. You have to pre-book for, I do a full year, honestly. I adjust as needed, and usually you revisit every 3 to 6 months. But for the next year, clients are in the books for the, whatever we had talked about, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah. And Stephanie, if say, for example, they're the chronic no-showers, those are the individuals that once you drop out of my schedule and then you miss a second appointment, especially when it's you're doing it really close to the other one, the rest of the appointments I had in the books for you, my clients understand, and I just take them out.
Bye-bye.
And then that spot opens up for a wait lister.
Yeah.
And then they'll get into the schedule. And then when that person can commit to the process, then we'll go back into that. How long does it take to clear an area to sell is really dependent on how much hair you have. So if we're talking density of the beard is every hair follicle has a name, is going to be substantially longer than a person that's right in here. So as you start looking at your total treatment time, so you might see that online as TTT, see how many hairs for the modality that you're doing, you do in an hour's time, and then start looking at how many of the hairs in the area that you've cleared you actually did. So if your machine has a hair counter on it, this is where that becomes very beneficial, right? So if my machine had 500 hairs on the machine is what I zapped, and I know that the area of 500 hairs was this big, I didn't make a lot of movement, right? But if the 500 hairs was my whole entire cheek, then I know that I can get through a sizable area in that time frame. But as you move to the center of the face, I don't know if you do this, Joanie, but I don't clear. I thin. Feathering is how you preserve tissue. It helps with shadow reduction. It helps with like the patient feeling results a little bit faster. People think that, oh, if I clear an area, they're going to feel relief, right? But now they'll have a cleared area, but now they have patchy beards. I also have seen things online where like people will let the patients kind of dictate where to clear. And the patient's like, I want to get these 2 areas done, right? But they have a full beard. And I want you to think about someone having to be masculine presenting, growing out their full beard, and you only cleared out these 2 corners of the chin because that's the 2 parts that drove them crazy. Yeah. How are they going to look when they're still having to be masculine presenting at work with 2 bald patches on either corner of the chin? I mean, like, people are going to ask, what's wrong with your face? Like, and not in a mean way, but like they're going to
when
ask.
you're talking about a beard, even shaved, you see the shadow.
Oh, absolutely.
So sometimes they forget that, and it's just kind of like, you see it on legs and backs. Like when you're doing a man's back, it's the same thing. Like, don't give them quarter-sized circles everywhere. It looks weird. So you want to make sure that you're feathering through the area, kind of thinning it out until you can clear it. Just because if it's summertime, they take off their shirt and you just have a bunch of circles everywhere, like that's ridiculous. You're not doing them a service.
It does. I mean, when I see it come in from other clinics, it does give me a good giggle because I'm like, oh, look, a reverse cheetah. Like it's a thing. And I tell my patients, like, let me be the professional on your plan so that we can get to those spaces. One of the other things, Giselle, that I was thinking about is like, as a laser technician, as well as an electrologist, if I have a large beard that I'm working on, I'm going to clear them first as much as I can with laser so that it's not as much labor on my body as an electrologist. That's huge. So when I think about those moments, like a beard with someone that has had laser has reduced that volume is going to take half as much time, if not more, to get done with electrolysis. And it makes the patient really happy to have that loss of volume. And it makes me happy because my hands don't hurt, my neck doesn't hurt, all that kind of stuff. And it allows me to fill up my schedule with more people because I was able to like offload some. So kind of cool things that you can do. I feel like there was
before we go to Olga, I just want to say that tape is coming up. You're speaking too, right, Stephanie, for tape? Yes. So tape is coming up, and I did send all of the CEA students the email for that. There is a student price for it. My topic happens to be the staircase model, which talks about treatment planning. And I go through some case studies so that you can see real life photos of how long it took and how things actually ended up looking. What are you talking about, Stephanie?
I am doing blend in the modern world.
Okay.
Yeah. So
those were both topics from AES last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It tends to be a lot of times so whenever you go to like Joanie and I's education events, we tend to create you guys new stuff, and then people hear that, and then it goes to the state associations. So you end up getting like the brand new launches from us. And then if you missed it, the state associations tend to then take that because it's already been pre-approved for whatever CEUs they're trying to get. And it makes it easier for them to do the process.
Like you might see a lot of the insurance and the electrologists coming up.
Oh my gosh, right? We did that lecture and like Joanie and I had like our phones blow up. They're like, our association too. Like the East Coast just messaged for that as well. So a lot of people, when that kind of stuff happens, and if you guys if you're like, oh, I want a full lecture, 1 to 2 hours on this one topic. If you think that it can hold that much time, by all means, drop them in the email to us because
we're always looking for new stuff. I gotta come up with new stuff at some point. So
yeah, and like this year, so when we launched this year, we have you have 3 more CEU lectures, and I have three more of our virtual ones that we'll be doing kind of like every other month, and then we have our advanced electrology seminar in June, and that's an in-person one. So like there is no shortage of continued education units that you can grab from us. And every time we have education events that we're speaking at, like you're going to see it on our socials as well, so that you guys can access education at any given point.
I'll type in the social, the Instagram account for the coalition too.
Yes. And then Olga, I'm gonna ask I just muted Joanie. Sorry. Where did she go? She's over here. There we go. You went missing, my friend. There we go.
Oh, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I can.
Okay, good. Yes. So my question is related to clearing an area and planning treatment. So let's say you plan the whole year and you allocated, let's say, 4 months to clear an area, but at the 4th month period, you're not actually done. You need maybe a month more, but you already scheduled the subsequent appointments farther apart. Do you then just adjust?
So I don't adjust
And how
until
would
I
you
get to that
communicate
point.
that? Okay.
Yeah, and maybe Stephanie too. So it's like you kind of have to feel your way because you never know how somebody's going to react to the treatments. You know, sometimes the clearings go faster, and sometimes their hair growth is just aggressive. Hormones, there's a lot of different issues that can pop up. So if I'm seeing you once a week for an hour, there gets to a point where the same area takes me only 45 minutes to do. And then usually that's the first. And usually what I'll mention, I'll say, if the next few appointments, the same thing happens, I don't need as much time because I need more than one session. Because one session, what does that tell me? That's just one cycle. I need to see multiple growth cycles just to see if my time really is reduced. And if that's the case, we adjust. So client came in once a week for an hour. Now only 45 minutes. I'm kind of flirting 45 minutes, 35 minutes, and I'm looking for peach fuzz at this point because I'm going to fill my time anyway. Then I say, okay, you know what? It's really slowed down. So you have two options. Come once a week for 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever the time is, or let's do once every 2 weeks for an hour. And so then I adjust. Then you're in the second stage now. It's the second 3-month mark usually. So now you're doing that schedule. You'll get to a point again where it used to take you 45 minutes every week, takes you 30. You do that a couple appointments, it's still taking just 30. You're ready. Now you go to the next step. So start spacing out, start reducing. And so you kind of feel your way together. That's why, like when a client asks, like what you said, Giselle, like, how long does it take to do this? Or how long does it well, I don't know how long it's going to take for you. Like we're both kind of on this journey together. I could give you an idea, but I have no idea exactly how many appointments it's going to take, how long, and all of this. And you'll see it, we'll see it as we go. We kind of play and eventually you'll get to that area, but we just kind of have to like feel our way together.
I did the same thing. So basically when I book up your appointments, if I estimated that I needed about an hour a week, okay, and I book that out for months, okay, what I'll start doing is as the trends change, I verbalize it to my patients. Hey, because they'll start saying like, hey, I didn't have to shave as much. I didn't notice it as much, that kind of stuff, right? And I'm like, you know how like you weren't noticing as much, you weren't having to shave as much. I'm actually seeing a lot of changes as well. So over the next couple sessions, if I see this continuing, then I'm going to make adjustments to your treatment plan. And I'm going to take out either an appointment or I'm going to reduce your appointment time. So instead of me seeing you an hour once a week, I'm going to do the next ones for 45. And if I see that, because you'll have some people that are like, I don't want to come in less often. So then I just kind of chip away at the time on the schedule. And by doing that, it keeps like that consistency in there, keeps them dedicated to the plan. And then they understand that we're watching it, right? We're watching it together. So if they see trends, if they're like, and I tell my patients, if by chance you hit a surge in hair growth, call me and let me know that there might be some potential extra growth. If there is space after your appointment, I will extend your appointment back, right? If there isn't, don't worry. We're going to get the biggest offenders first, and the following one will increase your time. Because I usually have a little bit of a wiggle room, kind of like if I go a couple ahead, right? So, and that's because everybody's schedule is kind of doing that. I also try to get really smart about how we're booking the appointments, right? So I might have an hour-long person, a 15-minute and a 30-minute. But when I book an hour and 15. I might book 45. Okay, so that's 2 hours. And then a 15-minute is a 30-minute session. So what I end up doing is my buffers for my turnover time turn into those spaces where I can kind of inch people around in the schedule. But earlier we talked about like, what do we do when we're sick? And I know that we're getting close to the end. One of the things that I really drilled into my head early on, I remember when I was like a young, starving electrologist just looking at my mom being like, how am I ever going to get clients? Right. And I was freaking out. I would think about the fact that if I show up for your appointments every time, that shows you my dedication. When you show up for your appointments every time, that shows me your dedication. When we start dropping appointments out of the schedule, they lose trust in us for dedicated to their treatment plans. And like vice versa, we lose trust in them, and that's why we take them out, right? The more you do that, you train your patient to be a bad patient rather than a good patient, right? So if you're always calling somebody around and being like, hey, I had an opening, do you want to come in 15 minutes earlier? That's much different than like, hey, there's a huge gap in my day and I want to close it up. Can you come in earlier? Right? Because you're telling them that like, you don't want to be inconvenienced to stay around for them. And so they might just drop out of the day. But if you're like, hey, it's open, do you want it? And they're like, yeah, I want it. It changes that narrative and it helps train them to want to be dedicated to their plan. Does that make sense? So then you're no longer a starving zapper, which you shouldn't be, but it happens.
So I think that's all for today. So if you have any more questions, again, just let us know. This is, by the way, for all of mine. I was offering this all month for my students, but the membership is $20 a month. So if you've kind of enjoyed what's been happening here, and so we encourage you to join us, just to kind of ask your questions, share, so we'll kind of let you know what's going on in the field as much as we can. And we hope you stick around.
Yeah, we're so grateful for you guys. We are so glad that you guys are here and spending. I know that some of you it's really late at night, so I really appreciate you guys staying up late and letting us chat your ear off about hair removal.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Peace out, guys.